January 6th is going to go down as a day in history after the siege on our nation's capital. But for so many of the people that went to DC yesterday, they were not there for the siege. They were there as a peaceful protest and to be a part of what they thought was going to be a history-making day. Joining us now on the phone is Sean Crum. He is from Detroit, and he actually went to DC along with others from the Metro Detroit area. Sean, thank you for being with us on the Megacast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sean, we talked a little bit earlier. Give us a little bit of your background. You went to DC yesterday for what?
Well, we went down there just to show support for President Trump. Obviously, my wife and I are Trump supporters. We believe he's done a pretty good job for this country and us. And we wanted to get with like-minded people and do some talking and introduce ourselves and meet new people and just go down there to show support.
How was your experience?
It was good. Overall, it was really good. It was a sea of people. Everybody was happy. There was we didn't hear anything on the ground about any of this going down. Everything was peaceful. We listened to a lot of speeches. Just we're having a good time hanging out in D.C. Didn't really see it becoming any type of problem.
So were you able to listen to the president's speech at all?
Yes, and actually,
or at least his at the rally. So let's talk at the rally, not what he recorded later.
Yes, and that's actually when my wife and I started getting out of the crowd and walking down, toward the Capitol building, just to check things out. We knew that's where everybody was going to be marching afterwards, and we kind of wanted to avoid the massive amount of people. So we were, when President Trump started speaking, we kind of turned it on our phones and were listening as we were walking through town. And
so it's kind of like going to a huge concert where you can't get up close, so you look for the technology to give you that one-on-one connection, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of people are feeling as if Trump incited these riots through the speech. What did you take away from it?
I don't agree with that. I don't think he incited any type of violence. I don't think he called for any type of violence. I think that 99% of the people there were good people and big supporters of the president and our country. And there were a few there that got thrown into the mix that did this. And in my opinion, they did it to make us all look bad. And we were not down there for violence. We were not down there to cause any harm. We were down there to support our country. And the people that support our president that didn't make it to D.C., we were down there to support them as well.
With that, I look at this, and you and I talked before, I've been caught up in a riot, and it's overwhelming. But I also feel at the end of the day, it takes away from the message that you went there to support. Do you have those same feelings?
Absolutely. Now, when we got back to the hotel, we're staying on the other side of the bridge in Virginia, and me and my wife were talking the whole time, and it really opened up a wound on what was supposed to be a great day and really damaged it. And it's just incredible how it can go from peaceful and everything is fine to complete chaos within minutes. And we were down there, we were carrying medical supplies, body armor. I mean, we were prepared for the worst, but didn't really think anything that crazy was going to happen. And I can't speak for everybody, but in my opinion, it definitely did bruise what we were down there to do.
So I have one question for you. Why would you go with body armor? Because I will say my husband bought me a bulletproof vest when I was reporting on the streets of Detroit. It's not cheap. The vest was $600. So we were like, it's not cheap. I'm like, could I have that $600 for new curtains? When I found out how much he paid for it, So I'm like, why would you even go with that? Because some people are going to say, well, you went there, and if you're bringing that, you were looking for trouble.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't think of it that way. I'm a big Second Amendment guy. Everybody that knows me knows that, and I follow the law as far as carrying firearms. And DC's laws, obviously, if anybody knows, unless you have a permit for DC, you cannot carry a firearm. So for the people that were carrying, I was just being prepared for the worst. I would rather have my equipment on and not have to use it than not have it and take a bullet to the chest, you know. And you saw, I mean, everybody saw what ended up happening yesterday. And, you know, with that poor woman who did end up getting shot and died, you know, anything was possible. You know, after so far, who knows what desperate people will do. And I would rather be able to get my wife back home safely and myself than end up in a hospital somewhere over something that could have been prevented.
Yeah, because you're wondering, had she had a vest on, would she still be alive right now? And she was a veteran. She served our nation for 14 years, I believe.
Absolutely, and it's so sad. That should have never happened. I honestly don't know how or why it happened. I couldn't see that woman being a serious threat, but I wasn't inside that building. I don't know the details.
But Sean, with that, when you look at this and you hear these stories, it seems like there are people that were so dedicated to President Trump that they would go to these extremes. Where do you and others such as yourself go from here? Do you feel defeated, or do you still have hope in our democracy?
You know, I can't say that I feel defeated. I do have hope, but I just can't see our country coming together with it being as divided as it is right now, and especially with Joe Biden. And this is just my opinion. I can't speak for everybody, but I don't think the man is a good fit to hold office. I mean, he can't complete sentences. He was clearly on video bribing the Ukrainian government, and the exact thing that our country tried to impeach President Trump for. That was a total hoax. And nobody's talking about that. And how do we trust this man to do what's best for the country and not what's best for the politicians? So I think that a lot of people share my beliefs. Like I said, I can't speak for everybody, but I don't think our country is going to heal for quite some time.
That is really, it really is sad to think about. But they are now talking about trying to invoke the 25th Amendment. President Donald Trump only has 13 days left in office. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, they've disengaged his account.
Yes, which is un-American. It's censorship.
Yeah, it's censorship, and there are a lot of arguments to censorship, by the way, because as someone who is a member of the media, we may not like what one side says, but what happens when that crosses into your world as well. So there is something with censorship in that regard. But with that, what are your thoughts on the future?
You know, it's really uncertain. All I can say is that, you know, we're law-abiding citizens. We're going to keep pressing forward and doing the best we can to support our families and this country. And I honestly can say 100% that I will never support Joe Biden as our president. I have a lot of questions with the election. I have a lot of discrepancies with the election. But that, like I said, that's just me and, you know, my wife as well. But we are just going to keep doing what we have to do as American citizens and press forward and make the best for our families. We have to worry about each other. I have never sat back and thought, man, these politicians are really here for us. They're really going to help us out. I've never relied on them. I've never relied on any form of government to help us or do right by us. We have to do right by each other. And going forward, I think that that's the only route to go to kind of heal these wounds and make things better for the rest of the country. If we keep fighting and fighting, it's just going to get worse and worse, and nothing's going to change.
And that really is a message for both sides of the aisle
Right.
as well. So if they do manage to invoke the 25th Amendment and Pence becomes the president for the remainder of the 13 days, 12 days, 11 days, whatever is left, will you support him?
Honestly, with what he did during the certification process, that kind of stung. So I honestly can't say that I would support him. I wouldn't be out in the streets protesting and screaming, I'm going to go to work like everyone else, and I'm going to pay my bills like everyone else. It's 13 days. I don't know what he could really accomplish in that 13 days that would do further damage to our country or even attempt to help our country. So it's kind of a moot point to me as far as what they do with that. I think it's a political game. I don't really see it as anything that's going to help or hurt us. I think it's kind of just a dead thing that they're going to try to do.
Sean Crum with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He attended the rally yesterday in DC, but we want to make it clear you were not a part of the siege on the Capitol. With that, Sean, I just have to wonder what do you think this has done long term for people such as yourself and the supporters of not just Trump, but what he stood for? Because a lot of people, when you say you're a Trump supporter, they also say you're a racist. Do you feel you're a racist because you live in the city of Detroit?
Yeah, I've got quite a few black friends and friends of color, and we're not racist. We did get heckled on our walk out of there. Me and my wife, we got screamed at for being Trump supporters, and I can't say that, just because you're a Trump supporter, they lump you into one group. And I support our country. I support our Constitution, as well as my wife. And I think a lot of people have lost sight of that. I think a lot of the left has lost sight of that. As a matter of fact, all of the left has lost sight of that. And, we just got to keep pressing forward. We got to keep moving. We can't sit around sulking about this. It is what it is, and we've got to deal with it. And, hopefully things get better. I honestly don't see that happening for quite some time. The country is severely divided.
But what do you think would take to bridge that divide? Does it start with a conversation and trying to come together? Is there a compromise in your eyes?
I've always thought, these same people that have been in office for 20, 30, 40 years have gotten us to this point. I think that's where we need to start making changes. Term limits, things of that nature. Get some fresh faces in office. Get some new people in office that'll actually listen to the wants and needs of the American people rather than lobbyists and things like that. Help this country rather than help yourself. I just don't know how else we can do that with the same people sitting in the same positions.
But there is also the argument that, like any job, it takes you a while to learn the job and get the connections to be able to make improvements and get things done. So if you limit term limits, are we also limiting progress?
I don't know. We've never tried it. So, what do we have to lose at this point? I think new ideas need to be introduced rather than shut down as soon as they're brought up. It shouldn't have to be, okay, I work in government, but I need to be buddies with this guy in order to get something done. You should be able to do your job, and people agree on certain things and make changes that way rather than political payoffs or whatever the case may be. This is our government that's supposed to work for the people, and I don't feel they've worked for the people in quite some time. And I'm only 36. I can't, I've lived a short life so far. But what I've seen in my life up until this point, this has been the first president that's ever actually tried to accomplish what he swore he would do when running for president. I've never seen anybody else do that.
So, Sean, knowing that we've been through his entire presidency, but also just within the last 24 hours, if he were to run for re-election in 2024, would you support him?
Absolutely, without a doubt. In my opinion, I think by 2024 he's getting up there in age. I don't think he's going to want to do that, but you never know. And for what he's done for me and my family during his term, I couldn't be happier. I have no qualms with him. The one thing I can say, there are times where he should not be on the internet and, getting on Twitter and saying stuff. Sometimes you should keep your mouth shut, but, he's an imperfect human being just like the rest of us, so I can't say that, everything was terrible. I thought that he did a great job. I've paid less taxes. My wife has paid less taxes. We've made more money steadily every year since he's been in office, and things were good. And I think that this pandemic came and they just tried to turn it and blame it all on him and blame all of our country's problems on him when we've had these problems for a long time now.
So take his Twitter account away.
Right.
And there's so many people, even a lot of people that are huge supporters of Trump will say the same thing. Take his Twitter account away. But any lasting words that you want to leave with us? Just for you, what will you take away from being there yesterday? Because we have to remember there were thousands and thousands of people there that were there for the rally, not for what happened on the Capitol.
Yes, I can say 100% that if we had to do it all over again, we absolutely would. I was proud to be there. I'm glad we came. I would absolutely do it again. I stand with Trump supporters. I stand with the American public, 100%. I would never turn my back on this country, and I feel that so many people have. And I think that if something is worth fighting for, you fight for it, and you keep fighting for it, no matter what happens. And that's kind of where we're going to go from here. We're just going to, keep going. We're going to keep pushing forward. We're going to keep fighting, and hopefully others realize that this country is worth fighting for. Absolutely.
But some people will say you can love America, but you can't hate democracy at the same time. And they felt like that was on display yesterday. Your thoughts on that?
I don't think that, I can't speak for the actions of the idiots that pressed through the doors. That was just a dumb move. But how can we have a democracy when everything seems to me to be 100% one-sided? It's either you join with us or we leave you behind. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with a two-party system either. How can we get anybody else in there when they're not rich, when they don't have money to raise for a campaign? That's something that perhaps needs to change as well. What do the super wealthy know about guys like me that live in Detroit, in the neighborhoods, other people like that work hard and do the best they can for their family? These people don't live in reality, and they're the ones that run our country. How is that helping us at all? And, just for example, they just gave everybody $600 after 9 months. What did that do?
Sean Crum with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He attended the rally yesterday in the D.C. area in the nation's capital. Sean, anything that maybe I didn't touch on that you want to mention before we let you go?
No, honestly, I think you pretty much got it all. And like I said, it was a great time. We met a lot of great people and had a lot of good conversations. There's a lot of good ideas floating around out there. And, to the American public, just hang on, hang in there. Change could be coming sooner than later. Hopefully it's good. But either way, press forward and provide for your family and just keep going.
Sean, real quick though, before I let you go, when you went there yesterday, was there really any thought in your mind that you or members of the Trump supporters were going to be able to change the outcome of this election?
I can't say that us as supporters were determined that we could change the outcome. We were there to kind of pull politicians' heads out of the sand to at least look into this election further and look at this evidence that's been provided. Because from what I can tell, the courts kind of just tossed it aside. Everybody's just tossed all this evidence aside that I have personally seen, video, articles, all these things that I think really deserve a hard look, and nobody wanted to do that. And I think that was a serious, serious problem. So I don't believe that any of us there thought that we were going to change the election. We were just trying to get the attention of the politicians that had the power to at least get this moving and look into this a little further.
One thing I will say I find fascinating, though, is people forget Trump was a wealthy guy. I mean, he came from a wealthy family. He was handed what we would all say a golden spoon in life. So why are you guys following him?
Well,
what is it about him that makes you feel like he's one of us?
Well, I think that he's a guy that, obviously had money and came from money, and he went into public office and stopped making all that kind of money and stopped, living that kind of lifestyle to serve the public. Most of the time, a politician gets in office and comes out of office super wealthy. He came in super wealthy and donated all of his pay to the country, worked hard for the American people. Most of these politicians go in, and by the time they come out, they are multi-millionaires. How does that work for a public servant? I don't get it.
Well, Sean, I will say it's been great having you with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I know that you were there yesterday, but we do want to let people know that you are not a part of the group that was trying to get into the Capitol, because there is a big difference. There is a big difference between peaceful protesters and the message you wanted to get across, as well as what they're now calling domestic terrorists that did in fact go into the Capitol and gain access into the Capitol. So Sean, thank you. And we also want to say safe travels to you, your wife, and the others that went with you as you travel back to Detroit today.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.